is an E&P Report sponsored webinar with yours truly, your host, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine, and sponsored by the fine folks at Newzware, a division of ICANON. Please join me today as we discuss a transition for the New Jersey Hills Media Group with our guest today, Jerry O'Donnell, Operations Officer, New Jersey Hills Media Group, along with Thea Giardina, their Circulation Manager, Tamara Pompey, Chief Revenue Officer for the parent corporation for New Jersey Media, and representing Newzware Division at ICANON, Dana Bascom, Senior Sales Executive, along with Mike Hansen, Chief Financial Officer. I am honored to have with me today members of an organization that I've worked with this group in the past as a media consultant, and they've gone through some changes. First, let me introduce an old friend, Jerry O'Donnell, Ops Manager of the New Jersey Hills Media Group. Jerry, welcome. It's an honor to have you here. But congratulations also on your ascension into nonprofit status in 2022. Am I correct, sir?
Yeah, we were family owned for a long time, and as people were retiring, they transferred ownership to a nonprofit, and it's been fantastic. I know there's a lot of problems out there for smaller, mid-sized newspapers, and this was really a very, very good move for us.
Jerry, can you give me a quick? I mean, I can tell you, every other story we publish, Jerry, has AI in it, as you likely guess. So I went to AI, ChatGPT, who was a guest on this program, another story, and I asked ChatGPT who you are. Family-owned media company that publishes local weekly newspapers across New Jersey, primarily focusing on providing hyper-local news to communities in the northern part of the state, operates several well-established publications, including the Bernardsville News, Chester Chronicle, the Observer Tribune, the Madison Eagle, and many others. How did it do? A to F.
Well, you're going to replace me with AI, it sounds like, Mike, because that was perfect.
All right, good. This then brings in, if I may, the Chief Revenue Officer for the parent organization, Tamara Pompey. Welcome so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. So
your job is basically to oversee how the philanthropic world supports this news entity, correct?
Correct. Yeah. One of our visions when acquiring the Hills Group was to really examine the different types of support that newsrooms can get, and to try to sort of expand this revenue sustainability of local news. So one of our first thought with that was obviously philanthropic support, individual donors, grants, things like that. So really just kind of coming up with a new model to bolster the different types of revenue that can make a newsroom sustainable.
And of course, the world seems to be, at least in our reporting, more willing to contribute to local journalism. In other words, we're seeing through what we call today the ghost papers, or they actually call news deserts, communities that lose that final check on power that we so desperately need in our society. That people are really, do you believe that, or people are now saying, yes, I want to support the need for this news entity to continue, correct?
Absolutely. And we found, I think the Pew Research Center has done a lot of good work on this. They've also found that local news is the most trusted among, national, statewide, regional. So people are definitely willing to engage with it. I think we're just coming out of a period where people have been sort of trained to get their news for free from various sites, social media sites. So we're still, I think, making the case that local news is worth paying for and worth supporting financially. But especially the New Jersey Hills Group, it's got a lot of incredibly dedicated supporters that have been subscribers for a very long time. So I think that's one thing our model really can offer is, showing people, showing communities that really support their local news financially and, physically. Like Thea, I think, was just at a fair over the weekend, and she had tons of people come up to her and want to know what we're up to and want to hear more. Everybody wants to meet the editors. So yes, I've definitely found that people are really willing to engage on the local level, and it really matters to them.
Let's introduce Thea. Thea Giardina, the circ
Okay.
manager, right? Now, Thea, when we say circ manager, does that include all forms of audience, digital as well as print?
Yeah, yeah, I handle all the circulation for all the papers. We have 12 issues right now. So I handle all the circulation for that and many other things as they come up. But yeah, we have a very dedicated group of people as our subscribers. We have Burnsville News, Madison Eagle. We have subscribers that go back 30 years, 40 years. It's amazing. And they are very vocal when they don't like something. And they tell us what's wrong and they tell us what they want to see, which is great. You know, I like it. And they all know the editors, they know the reporters, which again, wonderful. Very involved with the towns.
Jerry, the hardest thing is I'm a publisher, you're in charge of operations. The hardest thing today is to finance that newsroom in a profitable, sustainable way. We just heard that from Tamara. One of the things you got to look at is all aspects of your operation, correct? Right on down the line, everything, just to make sure they're as efficient as possible. Am I right?
Yeah, the days of, well, this is part of our established culture here are long gone. There's nothing that you can't improve or make better or make a little more economical. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be around very long.
So with this hodgepodge, I don't even want to use that term, with these many different titles, I'm assuming you try to do as much scale as you can, right? Operate everything as efficiently as possible so those journalists can get paid to do their damn job.
Yeah, they want to do their thing and let us handle everything else.
Exactly. I mean, and that's our mission here too. So let's discuss this. You reached out to ICANON, the makers of Newzware. That's full disclosure, a huge supporter of ENP. We're so proud to have them as a marketing partner. Why? Why did you reach out? What was your biggest challenge, and why did you need to get some efficiency in there?
As you mentioned earlier, Mike, we've done stuff in the past. The system we were using for our circulation and our billing, accounting, everything else was about as old as me. And it was and we own the servers and everything else. We owned it when we owned the system. So it was getting to the point where if the server went, we were going to have a big issue. And we looked at a bunch of different companies. And while some had offered things that were very good and nice, and they could do some of the stuff we wanted to do, as more we did our research, we found that the ICANON guys were perfect. They did everything we needed to do. They covered from legals to circulation to billing, and Dana will tell you, we probably had 5, 6, 8 meetings before we actually closed this thing, because I wanted to make sure this was a big, this is a big thing for us, because it affected a lot of our systems, and it was something, once I do this, we're going to be with them for a long time. And, from the start of it, they were great. Through implementation, there were some bumps in the road because we were the first New Jersey guys that they did with our legals and stuff. And they made accommodations for our special needs as things came up as we were doing it. They were working on the weekends. I couldn't speak highly enough of these guys for the effort and the product.
Yeah, okay. Let's introduce Dana Bascom, Senior Sales Executive of Newzware ICANON. Dana, I equate shifting over the entire operation systems of a publishing company, because I had to do it when I inherited this 140-year-old brand, and make a lot of changes. It's almost like, switching banks. Do you know what I mean? Things you avoid because it just, you feel like it's going to be you laugh, but you know what I mean, right?
I do. I've thought about switching banks. There's too much trouble.
It's too much. You just got that. So and you just heard, this was like almost, I don't want to use an old joke, but how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is one, but the light bulb has to want to change in the first place. So these guys decided they need to make a change. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you take over this? I mean, are you just trying to close them and get the damn deal done? Or are you what is your process at Newzware ICANON?
It's pretty much a consultative sale. I mean, I talked to Jerry maybe 3 years before the sale actually closed. And every 3 months, Jerry would call me with some more questions, some more updates. We did some initial presentations, and then everything sort of went on hold for a while until they could get some funding. He didn't want to waste our time. until things were actually moving forward. And then it was a number of months as we went through and tried to figure out whether we were going to do this every application in one fell swoop, or whether it was going to stretch out over a year or something like that. And because we have multiple teams, we were able to do it almost simultaneously. I mean, circulation went first and then advertising, and we had different teams associated with it. And Mike Hansen was the project manager all the way through, and dealing with all the individual department heads there at New Jersey Hills Media.
Mike, now we introduce you, Mike Hansen, CFO of ICANON Associates, makers of the Newzware product. Mike, I like that we're featuring the New Jersey Hills Media Group because it's not a big dog. You know what I mean? When I say big dog, it's not like Lee or McClatchy. These are guys that are just trying to, do hyper-local journalism as best as they can, as profitable as they can, even though they're nonprofits. I mean, no mission, no margin, no mission. I mean, it's still a sustainable news product. How big are they in the scope of your company? I mean, do you sometimes class them as smaller than the other guys, or are they just as important to your bank of clients that you have?
Yeah, no, everyone's unique to us, and their size doesn't indicate that their challenges will be any different than anybody else that comes to our product line to help them keep their business running smoothly. So it's always an adventure finding out what a publishing entity is trying to solve at the time. We're a bunch of system integrators for the last 30, 40 years, trying to take the best of technology and bring it to an industry that sometimes find itself challenged with talent that can take on new types of technology. And we try to make that as easy as possible for them to digest.
Jerry, classify. Legals can be I don't know I'm not going to use that. They can be a pain in the butt. I mean, managing them, but they're so necessary. And can I make it's my show. I can do whatever the hell I want. Legals are not just a revenue stream for newspapers. It's another check on power in a community. There's a reason why these legal notices need to go through an independent, unfettered press, just so there's another set of eyes, right? I mean, we support.
So
go ahead.
When our reporters are out in the field and they're covering all the town meetings and the local covering guys, it used to be we were part of a group. Nowadays, we're the only sheriff watching anything that's going on.
Right.
And that carries over to the legals. If they weren't with us, where would they be? I mean, they publish in a bunch of different papers. And when it came time to do that with the ICANON guys and the Newzware product, we were the way New Jersey monetizes the legals is a lot different than any place else. So it was a challenge, but they rose to it. And in all honesty, it went from we can't do that to, hey, it's done in a very short amount of time. That was one of our, when we were looking at other products, that was one of the things that always fell short other places, but these guys were able to do it. And as you probably know, for any newspaper, the legals are a vital revenue stream at this point in their life cycles.
And also a necessary part of the community you serve. Mike, how do you do this at ICANON? How do you stay on top of every community is different, how these suckers are taken in, how they're managed, the affidavits that have to be. I mean, you must have hundreds and hundreds of different systems. Is it that easy to implement for even a small operation?
It is, because there's a lot of commonality. So, you go in there with this core product and you just start looking for the edges that you have to fan out to either integrate with other players that are working at that site, like the press associations that need particular documents for presenting stuff on the web, or taking information in. The world of computing has evolved into great standards that, if you're paying attention to them, you can move pretty quickly to accommodate new needs.
Jerry, how about ROP? that can be a nightmare at the end of the month. Am I right? I mean, I have the same problem here. You got to get the affidavits out, right? You got to get everything
Yeah.
together, tear sheets, what have you, PDFs go this way, that way. How efficient, how is the change? What happened between before or after the
So
implementation?
the pagination part of this, laying it out, it's so smooth that Jake didn't really notice a difference. He's my layout person, my paginator. It's pretty much the same because we're integrated with Town News to do the publishing, and these guys integrated with them. So anybody using that Town News won't have any issues. The biggest change for us in this regard with them was that we could finally send out everything as e-tears. So there's savings in postage, obviously, but the other great benefit of this is instead of waiting, well, it's going to take a week for them to get it or 2 weeks, depending on how bad the post office is. They get it that day that we mail it out, the beginning of the month. So the bills are getting paid faster also. And if there's any questions, people can look stuff up right away. So it's just there was no downside to changing this over.
Thea, let's circle back to you in charge of audience. I know you still use the term circulation manager, but we've been seeing more and more audience manager because it's not just, you know what I mean? Because it's just every eyeball that touches you. How is this centralized efficiency change assisted you in your goal to make sure that there is as many readers digitally and in legacy print as possible in order to have the best impact into the communities?
Well, the best part that I think of Newzware and circulation is that a lot of stuff is automated. Their feeling is automate the easy stuff so you can deal with the complex stuff. And I love that concept because I feel the same way. Every day, my Drew, who is my representative, he gets bills because every day somebody's subscription is expiring. So he gets bills. He mails them out. We're constantly getting a stream of revenue coming in that way, which is fantastic. They've integrated with Town News wonderfully. In fact, we've just put in, we're now testing a news hook where they're pulling things in from Town News for us. And they're working well with them. And it's fantastic because everything moves smoothly. The whole process, the putting the accounts in, the applying the payments, it's all much simpler. What would take me a half an hour takes me 5 minutes.
Full disclosure, Town News, now called Blocks Digital, is an advertiser of E&P's.
Thank you.
And they are
Town News.
Oh, I still say it myself. It's been called Town News for decades now, but it's fine. It's a good CMS, and I'm glad that they were able to integrate it. I'm going to circle back, if I may, now to Tamara, because you represent the parent company. All in all, what you want, I assume, is just a sustainable news model serving these communities so you can fulfill the mission. Were you part of this process? Are you observing it from the parent organization? How do you feel about the decision to centralize everything and just make the whole thing easier?
We were 100% in support of that. And actually, from a philanthropic standpoint, this was a very big selling point with our donors, because obviously they want their money to be working for them, right? Just like anybody else would. So if we can demonstrate additional sustainability, additional efficiency, that's something that they're really, really looking for. And we actually had a donor fund this conversion because they were so enthusiastic about what Newzware would be able to back end. Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
So it was a very
I mean, how do you take a
nerdy?
No offense, these guys are nerds, right? I mean, you're talking. I don't want to. You got Jerry here who can, speaks every acronym of every part of the publishing process. I always say people like that have ink in their veins, and then they advance through the industry. How do you explain that to a donor? I mean, was it easy? Was it hard? Tell me about that.
It was easy. I mean, I'm not going to call our donors nerds too, but they are very interested in the details of the back end process and the sustainability. Honestly, when we were talking about it, we talked a lot in terms of efficiencies,
right,
and person hours. Like even Thea, maybe she can speak more to it, but with the old system, she was having to do so much work around so many extra things. So much of her time was spent just trying to plug the holes. And when you tell something like that to a donor who wants to make the local news the best it can be. Of course, their first question is, okay, well, how do we fix that? And, Newzware was the answer to how we fix that. And so I think that really hit home in terms of how much time can be saved, how much more efficient it's going to get, how you close the gaps that maybe human error falls into. So it's a very big, I think, selling point for donors, because they want the news to be better. They want the newsroom to run more efficiently. And this is a great answer for that.
Mike, I hope you're not offended by when I labeled you a nerd, sir. Are you still on the show? Or are you going to?
I still got my propeller hat somewhere. So that's
There's an old story, Mike, that when IBM was selling those first, processors that were the size of a house, the big, huge companies, that they blew it because they were trying to sell nerd to nerd. This is true story. But when they finally realized they should go to the CFO of a company and say, how many people do you have in your accounting department? Is that 11,000? I'd like to fire them all within 3 years. That's when it resonated what they were providing, which was efficiency. Is that how you sum it all up of what you provide? I mean, is it just down? I mean, because I just heard it from a philanthropic state, which I love hearing. Is that your product? Is it just simply efficiency?
It is, and we didn't start out that way. We respect the back office and every person who tallies up a list of checks and posts numbers into a system, and unfortunately, it does come down to the fact that there can be some economies of scale for the data entry and everything else that goes on between all those processes. And I mean, that's what computing's all about, isn't it? Software can do so much for you if you ask it to properly.
ChatGPT said those very words on this program. I'm not here to replace people. I'm here to free up the mundane tasks. Dana, final word. Give me the elevator pitch. If anybody out there, big or small, any stripe, flavor of publisher, wants to create these kinds of efficiencies within their operation, what should they do? What do they need to do to contact you guys? And just give us that final elevator pitch, Dana.
Well, you can come to newzware.com or ICANON.com. And as Mike said, for 30 years, before we really got into the newspaper industry, we were an integration company. And today we still excel at, as Jerry and everybody else mentioned, integration, because there's so many moving parts, pieces that you have to talk to, whether it be legals to the Press Association, Blockstown news interfaces, etc., interfaces to general ledgers. We have our own, but we're usually interfacing to another GL. Our expertise is integration. We do have a tremendously flexible and extensive solution, but we can't do everything. We don't have a CMS. We integrate to other CMSs, etc. We do have a GL. We can integrate to other GLs, etc. So flexibility and the power of our integrations.
There you have it. Thank you all for your valuable time. It's been an honor and pleasure, and keep up the good fight up there, Jerry.
Thanks, Mike. Good seeing you again.